Madhuram Karanam Madhuram Haranam Madhuram Ramanam Karanam Madhuram Karanam Madhuram Haranam Madhuram Ramanam Madhuram
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapata Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Kopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay, so we continue Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Today is text number 2. No, chapter number 2, text number 5. Munayah sadhu prishtoham bhavad birloka mangalam yadkrita krishna samprashno yenatma suprasidati. Munayaha of the sages, sadhu, this is relevant. Prishta questioned, aham, myself. Bhavad, be by all of you, loka, the world, mangalam, welfare, yat, because, kritaha, made, Krishna, the personality of Godhead, samprashna, relevant, question, yena, by which, atma, self, suprasidati, completely pleased. Translation. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. Purport. As it is stated herein before, in the Bhagavatam, the absolute truth is to be known. So the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya are proper and just because they pertain to Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita, the Personality of Godhead says that in all the Vedas there is nothing but the urge for searching after him. Lord Krishna, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Thus the questions that pertain to Krishna are the sum and substance of all the Vedic inquiries. The whole world is full of questions and answers. The birds, beasts, and men are all busy in the matter of perpetual questions and answers. In the morning, the birds in the nest become busy with the questions and answers, and in the evening also the same birds come back and again become busy with questions and answers. The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, is busy with questions and answers. The businessmen in the market are busy with the questions and answers, and so also the lawyers in the court and the students in the school and colleges. The legislators in the parliament are also busy with questions and answers, and the politicians and the press representatives are all busy with questions and answers. Although they go on making such questions and answers for their whole lives, they are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by question and answers on the subject of Krishna. Krishna is our most intimate master, friend, father, or son, an object of conjugal love. Forgetting Krishna, we have created so many objects of questions and answers, but none of them are able to give us complete satisfaction. All things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if we are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without being questioned or without giving answers. Because the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam deals with questions and answers, they are related to Krishna. We can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. One should learn the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and make an all-around solution to all problems pertaining to social, political, or religious matters. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Krishna are the sum total of all living, sum total of all things. Hare Krishna, Lebang Prabhu Tandar Pram Jai Shri Prabhupada. Text number 6. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radoksaje ahaitukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. Saha, that why certainly pumsam for mankind, paraha sublime, dharmaha occupation, yataha by which bhaktihi devotional service, adoksaje under the transcendence, ahaituki causeless, apratihata unbroken, daya by which atma self, suprasidati completely satisfied. Translation. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Purport. In this statement, Sri Suta Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that the fallen people or the people in general might easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called the Pravritti Marga, or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called the Nivritti Marga, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior, but the path of sacrifice for the supreme cause is superior. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence, or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. There is just the futile attempt to get rid of the miseries, and temporary cessation of miseries falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called the superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction of the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service of the Lord must be pure in quality, yea, without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of devotional service of the Lord, without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive action, and the philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. We have purposely denoted dharma as occupation because the root meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all-attractive living entity or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served, and it is transcendental and is completely distinguished from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and served is most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. Text number 7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yatya Suvairagyam Jnanam Cha Yat Ahaitukam. Synonyms: Vasudeve, unto Krishna; Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead; Bhakti Yoga, contact of devotional service; Prayojita, being applied; Janayati, thus produce; Ashu, very soon; Vairagyam, detachment; Jnanam, knowledge; Cha, and Yat, that which; Ahaitukam, causeless. Translation: by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Purport: those who consider devotional service of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic powers, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. According to them, bhakti or devotional service of the Lord is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent woman class, but that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. It is a great science to achieve the contact of the Supreme Person of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and it is open for all living beings, including the Shudras, Vaishyas, women, or even those lower than the Shudras, who are called low-born. So what to speak of the high-class men like the qualified Brahmanas and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti code. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, and the result of such perfect knowledge and that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with poor fund of knowledge think. Nice karma means not undertaking such activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essential does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The bhakti code is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti code, with the application of the positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things and becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the bhakti called being the supermost occupation of the living being leads him out of material sense enjoyment. That is the sign of a pure devotee. He is neither a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of bhakti cult. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. Okay, Haribol, who wants to read next verse?
Shall I read?
Yes, Prabhu.
Text 8, no? Dharma swanistita pumsam visvakisne katasu ya not padet yadi ratim shrama evahi kevalam. Dharma, occupation. Swanustita, executed in terms of one's own position. Pamsam, of humankind. Visvakisnena, personality of Godhead. Plenary portion. Katasu, in the message of Ya, what is, Na, not. Utpadet, does produce. Yadi, if. Ratim, attraction. Srama, useless labor. Eva, only. He, certainly. Kevalam, entirely. Translations. Duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Purport. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different conceptions of life. To the gross materialist who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. The concentrated selfishness enters around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst the low animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human society and centers around the family, society, community, nation, and world with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materials are the mental speculators who hover aloft in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry, philosophy, or propagating samism with the same aim of selfishness limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and the mind is a dormant spirit soul whose absence from the body makes the whole range. Of my whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and the mind. They are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent, active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and mind are but superfluous or outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's need must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of bird himself. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets a complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is the manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupation engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational duties, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be useful because of their failure to pick up the fountain head of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or the other. Even if he goes up to Swargaloka, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. Text 9. Dharmasya hi apavagrasya narto ritayo pakalpate nartasya dharmaikantasya kamo labaya hi smrita. Dharmasya, occupational engagement. He, certainly. Apurva, Apurvaya, ultimate liberation. Na, not. Artha, end. Arthaya, for material gain. Upakalpata is meant for neither. Arthaya, of material gain. Dharma, kama, sense gratification. Labaya, attainment of he, exactly. Smrita is described by the great sages. All occupation engagements, dharmas, are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, dharma, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Purport. We have already discussed that pure devotional service of the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from material existence. But there are others who are consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain. The general tendency of any ordinary man in any part of the world is to gain some material profit in exchange for religious or any other occupational service. Even in the Vedic literatures, for all sorts of religious performance, such an allurement of material gain is offered, and most people are attracted by such allurement or blessing of religiosity. Why are such so-called men of religion allured by material gain? Because material gain can enable one to fulfill desires, which in turn satisfy sense gratification. This cycle of occupational engagement includes so-called religiosity followed by material gain and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. Sense gratification in the general way for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Sutta Goswami, as per the verdict of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, this is nullified by the present Loka. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only. Nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described as follows. Text 10. Kamasya nendriya pritir labo jivata yavata jivasya tattva jijasana nartoya seha karma bhi. kamasya of desires, na, not, indriya, senses, priti, satisfaction, labha, gain, jivata, self-preservation, yavata, so much so, jivasya, of the living being, tattva, absolute truth, jisnas, inquiries, na, not, artha, end, ya, sa, iha, whatsoever else, karma be, by occupational activities. Translation. Life's desires should never be aimed at gratifying the senses. One should desire to live only because human life enables one to inquire about the absolute truth. This should be the goal of all works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense satisfaction, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders almost always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as is required for self preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses, which also require certain amount of satisfaction. There are regulated directions for satisfaction of such senses, but the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of such voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagement in sense gratification because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with work of researching the truth in sphere every of life. Therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. That sort of engagement will make everyone happy because they will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is as explained as follows. Does anyone want to read or shall I continue?
You can continue, Prabhu, if Neil Prabhu won't read or Vikas Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdyate. Vadanti, they say that that tattvat vida, the learned souls, tattvam, the absolute truth, yat which, jnanam, knowledge, advayam, non-dual, brahmati, known as Brahman, paramatma, iti, known as Paramatma, Bhagavan, iti, known as Bhagavan, Sabdyate, it's so sounded. Translation. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. Purport. The absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbha or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan or the personality of Godhead is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead. As the sun rays are to the sun god, less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization. But those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. As it is explained in the first sloka of the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and freed from the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known, but in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. In the relative world, the knower and the known are one superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter or by inferior energy. Therefore, there is duality of inferior and superior energy, whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and energetic, but there is difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusion, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is a sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. Text 12. Tat satranana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyanti atmani satmanam bhaktiya sruta gritaya. Tat, that. Saradhana, seriously inquisitive. Munaya, sages. Jnana, knowledge. Vairagya, detachment. Yukti, well equipped with. Pasyanti, see. Atmani, within himself. Sa, and. Atmanam, the Paramatma. Bhaktya, in devotional service. Sruta, the Vedas. Grihatya, well reserved. Translation. That absolute truth is realized by the seriously inquisitive student or sage who is well equipped with knowledge and who has become detached by rendering devotional service and hearing the Vedanta Shruti. Purport. The absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord Vasudeva or the personality of Godhead who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental body effulgence and Paratma is his partial representation. As such, Brahman or Paramatma realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are four different types of living beings: the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are materialistic, whereas the other three are transcendental. The first class transcendentalists are the devotees who have the realized supreme person. The second class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the absolute person. And third class transcendentalists are those who have only barely realized the special focus of the absolute person. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other worthy literatures, the Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from the material association. We have already discussed the point that from devotional service followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma, realization are imperfect realizations of the absolute truth. So the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, that is the paths of jnana and yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge and combined with the detachment from material association fixed upon on the overall reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method of realizing the absolute truth by the seriously inquisitive student. Devotional service is not therefore meant for the less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees or the neophytes who have no knowledge, no are detached from the material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshipping the deity in the temple, are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to material benefit than transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second class devotional position. In the second class position, the devotee can see four principles in the devotional line, namely the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of a second class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. A third class devotee, therefore, has to receive instructions of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavatam. The number one Bhagavatam is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is a message of Godhead. The third class devotee has therefore to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instructions of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be representative of Sukadeva Goswami like Suta Goswami and must preach the cult of devotional service for the all around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from the authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing. No, so one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead, as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, are undoubtedly transcendental subjects. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them like the serpent spoils the milk simply by touch of his tongue. A sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the worthy literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless. And therefore, a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service, unless therefore devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharata authorities, the make show of devotional service should be at once rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the worthy literatures, one can see the all pervading localized aspect of the personality Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called Samadhi. Text 13. Atapampiya divya dishesta varnasrama vibhagyasa swanustithya dharmasya samsiddhir haritu sanam. Ata, so, Bumbi, by the human being, Divya Shrestha, or best among the twice born, Varnasrama, the institution of four castes and orders of life, Vibhagasa, by the division of Swanadishya, of one's own prescribed duties, Dharmasya, occupational, Samsiddhi, highest perfection, Hari, the personality of Godhead, Tosasosanam, pleasing. Translation: O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging his prescribed duties, dharma, according to caste divisions and order of life, is to please Lord Hari. I bold. Purport: human society all over the world is divided into four castes and four orders of life. The four castes are the intelligent caste, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification and not by birth. Then again, there are four orders of life, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow up in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. The institutional function of human society is known as system, varnasrama, dharma, which is quite natural for one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over the other. When the aim of life, that is realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much of attachment for indrapati or sense gratification, as it is already discussed herein before, the institution of Arnasrama is utilized by the selfish men to possess an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In the Kali Yuga or in the age of Coral, this artificial predominance is already current, but the standard section of the people know it well that the division of castes and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high thinking self realization and not for any other purpose. Here, in the statement of Bhagavatam, is that the highest aim of life or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnasrama Dharma is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, which is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, BG 4.13. Text 14. तस्मत् एकन मनस भगवान सत्वदं पति श्रोताव्य कीर्तिकाविस्य च धियय पूज्य च नित्याद. Tasmat, therefore, ekana by one, manasa, attention of the mind, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sattvatam, the of the devotees, Pati, protector, Srotaviya, is to be heard, Kirtitaviya, to be glorified, Cha, and Dhyaya, to be remembered, Pujya, to be worshipped, Cha, and Nityada, constantly. Translation: therefore, devotees should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, who is their protector. Purport: if realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means in any of the above mentioned castes and orders of life. The four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshipping, are general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the life being involved in engagements in these different four principles of life, especially in modern society, all activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. Any man from Any social status become a well-known man in human society within a very short time if he simply qualified truly or falsely in the daily newspaper. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda and by such glorifying method. And significant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda work by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reactions to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of clarification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact from the beginning of the Janmadi Asya sloka of this Bhagavatam. The tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness. Text 15. Yad anudyasina yukta karma grandi nibandanam chindati govidas tasya kona kuryat kataratim. Yat which anudya remembrance asina word sword yukta being equipped with persons karma reactionary work kranti not nibandanam integnit chindandi cut kovida intelligent tasya his ka who na not kuryat shall not do kata messages ratim attention. Translation. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the labyrinth knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the Lord. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Purport. The spiritual spark contacted with the material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of routine work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, are transcendental to the modes of material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of the material bondage. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with the devotional service so that ultimately devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of routine workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with the devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it is alone can not only endure with one with liberation from the conditioned life, but can also award one with the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing him, by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always, without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavana, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach a bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense treatises of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. Text 16. Susroso Sadanasya Vasudeva Katarusi Siyan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punya Tirtha Nisevanat. Susroso, one who is engaged in hearing. Sadanasya, with care and attention. Vasudeva, in respect to Vasudeva. Kada, message. Rusi, affinity. Siyat, is made possible. Mahat Sevaya, by service rendered to pure devotees. Vipra, tortoise born. Punyatita, those who are all cleansed of all vice. Nisevanat, by service. Translation. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Purport. The conditioned life of living being is caused by his devoting against the Lord. There are men called Deva or godly living beings, and there are men called Asuras or demons who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, a vivid description of the Asuras is given, in which it is said that the Asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These Asuras are gradually rectified into God consciousness by the mercy of Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of Lord, and then when they come to save the human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, or as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord, but none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the Asuras, and the demoniac followers of such Asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is the definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself according to indications of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God and addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves as to so to warn us against the unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect by serving the servant of God. One can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita BG 18.69, that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about the God is first qualification of a devotee for entering the kingdom of God.
Haribol. Okay, last verse.
Haribo, Papa. Text 16. Snavatam sa kada Krishna punya sravana kirtana hridhi antasruto hi abhadarnani vidunoti suhrit satam. Snavatam, those who have developed the urge to hear the messages of Swagata, or his own words, Krishna, the person of Godhead, Punya, virtues, Swarana, hearing, Kirtana, chanting, Hirdi Anta Swata, within one shot, he certainly, Abhradryani, decide to enjoy matter, Vidoniti, cleanses, Suhut, benefactor, Satam, of the truthful. Translation. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful of devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Purport. Messages of the personality of God at Sri Krishna are not different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing of God is undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Sixthastagam, declares clearly that the holy name of the Lord has all the potency of the Lord, and that he has endowed his innumerable names with the same potency. There is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone can chant the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience. The Lord is so kind to us that He can be present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound, but unfortunately, we have to no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's name and activities. We have already discussed developing taste for hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord. The Lord is reciprocally responded to his devotees. When he sees that the devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a few very men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. One cannot enter into kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line fell victim to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. But when is helped by the Lord Himself, the whole process becomes an easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. To become restless in the contact of woman and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from a remote time, practically immemorial, and it takes time to recover from this foreign nature. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of Lord, gradually he realizes his position. By the grace of God, such devotees get sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbance. Gradually, all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind. Haribor.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Okay, now we go to six Astakam prayers. Hare Krishna, Saurabh, Prabhu, Nanda, Pram, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Swami Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.
चेतो दर्पणमार्जनं भवमः दावाग्निर्वापनम् श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावधूजीवनम् आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वदनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्
नाम्नाम् आकारी बहुधा निज सर्वशक्ति तत्रार्पिता नियमिता शरणेन काला एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवान् ममापि दुर्दैवम् ईदृशमिह जानि नानुरागः
तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना मानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरि
न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनिश्चरे भवतद्भक्तिरहेतु तयि
ऐनन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितं मां विषमे भवां बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कजा स्थितधूलि सतिर्संविचिन्तया
नयनं गलदश्रुधाराया वदनं गद्गदरुद्धया गिरा पुलकेर्निचितं बापू कदा नवो नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति
युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्राविर्ष्यायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दविरहेण मे
आश्लिष्य वा पदरतं विनष्टु माम् अद्रासनं मर्महतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव न परः
बोल श्री शिक्षाष्टकम की जय चैतन्य
जय
महाप्रभु
जय
बहुजन्म करे यदि श्रवण कीर्तन tabutan paya Krishna pade premadan. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name of for many birds, holy name for many birds, he will not get the love of God. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. The 10 offenses against the holy name are as follows. First offense, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Second offense, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Third offense, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Fourth offense, to blaspheme the Vedic literature in Persian to the Vedic version. Fifth offense, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to imagination. Sixth offense, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. Oh, I was reading them all, sorry.
No, bro, it's okay. You read, bro.
Prabhu,
Or
you
I
can
can prove.
Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu.
Seventh offense to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. Eighth offense to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas as putative activities, karma kanda. Ninth offense to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Tenth offense to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema.
Haribol.
Very good.
Let us offer our humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desires trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vancha kalpatarubhya kripa sindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnava Namo.
Ananda
Ananda
Gaudiya
Koti
Vaishnava
Vaishnava.
ki jai, Shila Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai.
Nitai Gaura
Jai.
Premanande. Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhus, for your kind
Thank you,
association.
Sai Prabhu.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Bye.